Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more very interesting Q&A where I am going to be answering your most challenging catamaran sailing questions, I am sure. Yeah, so you may wonder, you may not wonder, but you may wonder, why is it that in a lot of your videos you're doing things which would usually be done by two people single-handed? Okay, two good reasons that I do this. The first good reason is, and the most obvious reason, is it is so much easier for me to coordinate the actions of one person, that being me, rather than having to recruit somebody to do a task when it suits me, because everybody is, of course, got their schedule. Yeah, so I do end up doing a lot of things single-handed that would usually be done by two people. But I think the value that we can all draw from this is everything is so much easier with help. So if I'm demonstrating how to do things when you're on your own, it means that then if you had help to do that, it would be much, much easier. Does that make sense? That's making sense to me right now. So I'm going to drop that there and hopefully that makes sense. All right. And I thought today I would steam straight in with the first preloaded question. And before I steam in with the first preloaded question, I am going to be announcing a brand new, it's not really a competition, more of a giveaway in today's Q&A. So if by this point you'll have usually turned this off, stay tuned, because we are going to be talking about a giveaway from Joyrider TV. Oh, yes. All right. So the first preloaded question is from Matthew Wright, Y9T. Very important. And he says, any advice for launching from a boat ramp in a harbour? Yes, this is something we've kind of been over before, but we're going to put a slightly different angle on it. He says, seems like a bad idea, but I don't know anywhere where I can launch from a beach. Yes, largely launching from a beach is a bit easier, but there are the benefits of launching from a ramp in a harbour or a marina, is that sometimes if the gods are on your side, you can actually launch the boat and get on the boat without having to get wet at all, which, you know, when you're in the Greek islands, isn't such an issue because it's really quite nice and warm. Whereas if you sail somewhere where it's slightly less warm, that could be quite a nice start to your session, is not being wet to the waist. Oh, yes. All right. So, yeah. So if we've got a, let's, how should we do this? Let's say the first scenario is, if this is the land, here's the ramp going into the water. And then perhaps in a harbour, you're going to have some sort of things going on round the side, and then hopefully it would open up into the sea. Or maybe even there's a little thing that comes over like that, and you're having to launch your boat here. So what we'll do is we will have a look at this with the wind in all the different directions that it could possibly be in. So first one, wind blowing directly onto the nose. All right, so another big advantage here is we can get the boat completely prepared while it's on. So this, if this was a harbour, I would guess this would be like a sort of concrete or tarmac sort of parking area for boats. So it's quite nice to be able to put your sails up there and get ready, get all your gear on, that sort of thing. And then this is probably one of the more tricky scenarios, is actually to launch when the wind is blowing directly on. So if you're sort of lucky enough that the ramp going into the water is a wooden one, let's say it's either going to be a wooden one or a concrete one. If it's a wooden one, then what I would be inclined to do when you're all ready to go is get the boat so that you can still pass around on the water side of the slipway. You know, because sometimes the slipway goes into the water and then suddenly it stops and then it's really deep immediately. That is something else that's going to make it more difficult. So if it's a wooden slipway, stop your boat before it's, so you've still got space on the water side to get around the boat so that you can get your wheels out from underneath the boat. It is, generally speaking, much better. In fact, not even generally speaking, it's always better, if you can, to take the wheels out from the front rather than the back. The reason here is because if you take your wheels out from the back, there is a chance that it's going to hit your rudder system, and the rudder system on the boat is one of the most delicate parts of the boat, and we're trying to look after those bad boys. So get your wheels out from the front, put your wheels on the harbour wall, and then from there, if it's a wooden slipway, we can then slide the boat down the ramp, because on the wood, it shouldn't do your boat any harm. The only time when you don't want to do this really is if you're sailing a boat which has pivoting centerboards, and what those pivoting centerboards will have, if I just draw the underside, if we look straight up, this is one of the hulls. Here's the slot where the pivoting centerboard comes out of, and covering that slot to stop water from going up it, you're going to have what is called a slot gasket, which is like a flexible material, but it closes that slot to stop water going up. And you don't want to be sliding your boat anywhere if that part of the boat, the slot gasket, is actually going to be sliding on something. You need to be careful when you're putting your trolley under as well, incidentally, with this sort of thing going on under your boat. So if you've got that, it'll be more like how we're going to go about launching the boat with the concrete slipway. But yeah, so if you haven't got a slot gasket, so either you're sailing with a roto molded boat, an inflatable, we're going through this Catamaran's presentation here, an asymmetric hold boat, like a Hobie 14, a skeg hold boat, like a Dart 18, a symmetrical hold boat with dagger boards. Then from there, we can slide the boat in, and let's assume that the slipway is shelving really steeply. That is going to make it the hardest. So we'll get the boat in so that the bows of the boat are in, and then from there, what would we do? I think we just have to give it a pretty good shove, and just as we're putting it in, that's when we jump onto the boat, and we should have a little bit of momentum there. And then with that momentum, we'll get one of the rudders down and start to turn. This is the most difficult situation that we could have to get out from this position, by the way. Yeah, so we'll get the rudders down a little bit, turn the boat, and depending on what sort of obstructions we have, we'd either turn the boat in one direction or the other. Another thing that I didn't mention was, before we shove the boat into the water, we'll make sure that the main sheet is attached as well, so that all that we have to do when the boat goes in is a bit of rudder down, or rudders completely down if we've got time, and then we can start sailing. When we get out a bit deeper, rudders down completely, and then we'll have to just do some tacks to get out of this harbour situation. All right, that's number one taken care of. Now, while we're here, getting back in this sort of fairly tight situation, with either any type of slipway, wood or concrete, the safest way, let's say this wall is quite steep, so we've really got one place where we need to get to, so we don't have any kind of room to maneuver here, then the best way, if the wind is really light, you could come in straight downwind, and to slow the boat down going straight downwind, what we can do is bring the mainsail right into the center of the boat. So traveller all the way in, main sheet all the way in, but only if the wind is really, really light. Very important to note that. If the wind is strong, this is an extremely high risk strategy. So let's not do that. And then with the boat going as slowly as possible, if it's concrete, you'd want to get to the bow of the boat to hold the boat before it touches. If it's wooden, then maybe you can even just get the bows of the boat on there, then run to the front, grab the boat, pull it up a bit so it's halfway out of the water, then go and get your wheels, maybe release the main sheet at this point, again in very light conditions. So if the wind was stronger, so anything more than like almost like drifting conditions, then what we want to do is actually, when we're upwind of where we're going, we want to drop the mainsail out at sea. Yes, we've talked about this before. Drop the mainsail there and come in on the jib, because with the jib, with just the jib, we've got complete ability to slow the boat down completely while it's pointing straight downwind. So that would be the only real safe way, if this was as tight as it is in this diagram, to actually come in and reach our objective safely. All right, good so far? I hope so. All right, so how would we do this if the slipway was made of concrete? Yeah, this is going to be more tricky. Now, if we talk about doing it single-handed as well, it's going to make it even more tricky. So I think I'm having to think about this. So I'm just going to put myself in the position of actually doing this. What I would do again is get the boat down into the water as much as possible, but this time with the wheels still under, right up until pretty much when the wheels are right on the edge of where the slipway is. And then what I would go for from there, if it was a steep one, again, even though I said we don't want to bring the wheels out of the back, I would start to using the ropes on your wheels, get to the back of the boat and pull the wheels out of the back, gently lowering the boat down. You could put something under the boat for it to rest on, like some bits of foam, some fenders, car tires, if you haven't got anything more sophisticated, so that then the boat is resting on something soft, even some planks of wood going across. So then we'll be back more like in our wooden slipway scenario. But pulling the wheels out of the back, so we've got the boat a bit further down. And when the wheels start getting towards the back, so if this is our hull, can we see that? Yes. When the wheels get to about here, you know, that is the end of the danger zone. So then we're going to have to somehow lift the back of the boat a little bit and pull the wheels out simultaneously. Or better, perhaps, is to lift the back of the boat and actually slide the boat off the wheels with the back of the boat elevated. So lifting the boat there, push it forwards. Once we're clear, rudders as well, of course, then we can lower it down. So, of course, we're going to have to gauge the distance here. I'm going to do this for real once I'm back on the water. We've got a concrete slipway in Vasiliki Harbour, so I'll do this. Put it to the practice, and a lot of the time the wind is blowing in this direction onto the slipway, so it'll be quite a good test. And then boats resting down, we can then, as long as it's not in too far, maybe we should have started a bit further back, maybe 2 planks of wood if you want to make it easier, and then put the wheels somewhere safe. Boat is now resting on these bits of wood. We can then do the same that we did before, slide the boat in, making sure that the bottom bit of wood going across is quite close to the water's edge, so that at no point you're sliding the boat on concrete. Is that all right? That is what comes to mind. Now, if you're sailing out of a place where there are other catamaran sailors going out, the best possible thing that you can do is watch other people and see how they tackle this situation. Like where we had, in fact, where we had the Tornado Worlds in Thessaloniki, this was a particularly, this is one of the more tricky launches that we had, but also in Rimini in Italy, the launch there was a bit more tricky than launching off a beach. Again, it was a concrete slipway going in, and we did have it in a variety of different wind directions. Now, usually, let's say usually the slipway wouldn't go down so much that you couldn't step off the end, at least into like waist deep water. If you can do that, then you can launch the boat a bit more what I'd call normally, but it's just going to be you're wet from the start that way. Yeah. Now, if the wind was in a different direction, like if the wind was side on, let's say, then what we would want to do is get the boat down the slipway. I'm just going to take, no, I'm not. Get the boat down the slipway, and just when we start to get close to the end, turn the boat into the wind. And in fact, you might be better off pushing the boat down the slipway backwards and get to the windward side of the slipway first before we start our descent. So all the way over this side, so that then we can have the boat a little bit into the wind. And then as we get down to the bottom, back of the boat goes in the water, slides round. At this point, we pull the wheels out using the rope. Make sure that you've got rope or ropes on your wheels so that you can use the rope to pull that out of the front and then get the boat in the water there. Maybe just call someone over to take care of your wheels for you, and then jump on the boat, and then off we go. Now, if the wind is completely offshore, coming in like this, you would pretty much do the exact opposite, where you'd come in, try to keep the speed down. Like if this was windy, what I would go for is to come down into this bit as much as I could, so then I've got a bit more room to head up. If you were to come here, this is going to make it really dangerous, because you're going to have to bear away where you can't slow down and then somehow get your boat up into the wind. So if you get downwind as soon as you can, then come up into the wind, and then with the wind blowing in this direction, we can then try to jump off the boat, off the leeward bow, or bring the boat alongside, get off, hold the boat, and then we can tackle how we're going to get the boat out of the water from there. Sounds all right? Okay, so then the last one is if the wind is directly offshore, so blowing this way, then again, sails up, and this will be actually one of the easier ones. We'll just push the boat down into the water backwards, lift the boat high up so we can get the wheels out, and maybe if you're on your own, just have the first half of the boat resting on the slipway. And as long as you're careful that there's no rocks or anything or pointy things on the slipway, you can rest your boat down there, even onto concrete, just while you put your trolley away, and then get back to the boat, lift up the front, and then at the last minute, if we can't stand once we're off the slipway, jump onto the bow, the boat will go backwards, and then when you've got enough space, get to the back of the boat, rudders down. Again, Mainsheet is attached before we start this. Rudders down, and whichever way we've got more space, put the rudders to turn you that way. And then, so that was probably the wrong way to go, because we've got this bit here. So turn the rudders, and then we can start sailing out from there. Coming back in with this direction, again, probably the easiest way will be just to come in, tack, and there we are. All right, so I'm going to leave that there. I hope that was useful. And of course, this is almost the worst case scenario, where we've got a ramp that goes into deep water with not much space. So best thing you can do, if that is your only option, is look for another option. I know, not easy to do. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, but if you can watch other people launching, that is going to be great. Okay, I'd just like to say hello and welcome to Cucks Ollie into the Joyrider Sailing Club, which means that Cucks Ollie is now a channel member of Joyrider TV. Thanks for getting on board. It's a great way of supporting Joyrider TV and everything that I'm doing here. So thanks very much for getting on board. We could talk about other ways to support Joyrider TV if you like, but rather than do that, I'm going to say hello to everyone who's checking in live. So hello to Mark and Janet in Ohio. Finally warmer next week. The lake is thawing out. Yeah, it's like it's nice now in Greece at the moment. Although yesterday I did have what could possibly be the last day of the season in the mountains on the snowboard. Very nice. But yeah, it's now sunny. All we need now is this missing ingredient, which is known as wind, and then I'll be back on the water. So not long to go for me either. Great stuff. Kevin's on board. All right. Kevin's heading to Biloxi in 2 weeks for his second time in salt water. Yeah, Biloxi, of course, close to Ocean Springs, Mississippi, where I was not too long ago. Very nice. Leland Lee is on board in Clearwater, Florida. Nice to have you with us. Right. We've got HJ. Happy to see you again. Happy to be here again. Thank you. Cuxolly says, please hit the like button. It helps a lot. Yeah, if you could hit the like button at some point, then that would be great. Or if you don't like this Q&A session for some reason, you could hit the dislike button, because you're not going to believe this, but as far as YouTube is concerned, it's interaction which it responds to. So it doesn't really care if people give it the thumbs down or the thumbs up. All that the thumbs down does is it just hurts a little bit in here. It's just like a little bit of pain, but it does actually have the same effect as far as YouTube is concerned as hitting the like button. There we go. Okay, so we've got SA on board, who says, do many people get seasick on a beach cat? For me personally, I only feel like this seasickness on a beach cat if the day before, or more specifically the night before, I've perhaps enjoyed a beverage too many. And then if it's the worst conditions for this sort of motion is if there's waves and not much wind. Because if there's some wind, then usually that helps to get a bit of the blood pumping, the adrenaline flowing. And if you're going fast, I think perhaps that adrenaline going stops you from being susceptible to feeling this kind of motion sickness. Whereas waves with no wind, that is definitely the worst. But that's the only time when I feel a bit poorly. Whereas on bigger boats like yachts, I get it much worse personally. So I can't really speak for other people, but for me, on the beach cat, because you're so kind of attached to what the water's doing, it's much less of an effect, I think. That's in my opinion. But if it is going to be big waves, no wind, don't have too many sherbets the night before. I think that is the top tip there. All right, we got Hans on board. Guten Abend. Hans, great to have you with us. Stephen is on board. Grafham Water UK representing. Okay, Mr. Tony KP is on board in Eppeltoft, Denmark. Thanks for coming as always. Vicent. Sorry, not very good at pronouncing names. But Vicent is on board in Brazil. Yes, we are hitting the planet this afternoon or this morning or whatever time it is for you. And Matthew is on board. Matt from Baltimore, USA, who I think it's Matt who has just got a... Yes, there we are. He's outside working on his new Hobie 16 as we speak. Yeah, and Matt brought up an interesting question. His new boat, I believe, is a 1980. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Matt. A 1980 Hobie 16 with kind of fiberglass, plain-looking rudder blades. And so there was, of the kind of performance rudder blades from this era, there was one of the types of EPO blade, which would probably be at that time, maybe it was still on the EPO ones, which are really, really good rudder blades, very stiff and very strong. And then the kind of more like down one level were what Hobie used to call the White Knight rudder blades, which were like a fiberglass construction with a bit of carbon reinforcement, which were very stiff, and everybody used these for racing in the 90s, in fact. But they were not as good as the EPO rudder blades, even the older ones. So there we go. Who else is on board? Ollie is on board. Life on the Edges. All right. Yeah, cheeky snow trip. Looked good. Yeah, it certainly was. Back to Vasilitsa in the sort of north middle part of Greece. It's about 4-hour drive from where we are here. So it's a long day because we went there and back in a day. But oh my goodness, it was worth it. Oh, yes. And Ollie saw Simon. No. Ollie saw Mr. Simon Morgan himself at the UK boat show a couple of weekends back. Yeah, Simon Morgan, for those of you who are not lucky enough to have met or heard of this fine gentleman, he's actually the founder of Wild Wind Sailing Holidays and pretty much responsible for where I am now. So there we go. That is a very lucky chance meeting. All right, Hans in Berlin says, or maybe not Berlin, Germany somewhere, says, well spoken concerning seasickness. Thank you very much. We've got channel member Jens on board. Guten Abend, Jens. Yes, thanks for coming. All right, Lee says, we always talk about going fast. Let's talk about stopping and sailing backwards to help us be rounded in skills. All right, we can do that. Yeah, before we do that, I'm just going to, Matt's just come back with his Hobie 16 that he's just got hold of. It's a 2016, beg your pardon, not a 1980. Yeah, so that would be the White Knight rudder blades, which are oh, and his 84 Hobie 16 has got the black EPO ones. So yeah, my advice to Matt, with, because Matt asked me which rudder blades should he go with, and to be honest, if it was me, I would do what I'm going to call some A/B testing, where get my tools ready on the beach with one of the sets of rudder blades on the beach, then go out sailing with the set that's on the boat, come back in after having a good sail, swap them over, maybe while you're having a bit of a break, get the back of the boat in the air, like on the trolley, just make sure they're trimming down correctly, and then go out with those ones and see if you can feel the difference. But my guess would be the EPO ones would be more sensitive than the White Knight blades. If you've done this, anybody, do put it in the comments, or let us know how you got on with that bit of A/B testing. By the way, for those of you who've just joined, yes, I'm going to be announcing a Joyrider TV giveaway shortly. So stay tuned for that. Very exciting, where I'm actually going to be giving something away for nothing. Wow. Yeah, so stopping and heaving to. Question from Leland Lee in Florida. Right, yeah. So stopping your boat is an extremely important skill to have, and realistically it is more important than being able to sail your boat extremely fast, is to be able to stop that bad boy. So the easiest way to stop the boat from any point of sail is firstly to let the sails out. Letting the sails out is going to have a pretty decent effect on your speed. Now, the closer we are to the wind, this is a different way to look at it than how we've looked at it before, by the way. So I think this is pretty good. So letting the sails out, how much effect is it going to have? If we're sailing upwind, it is going to have a really big effect, and it's going to have that effect pretty quickly. So if we're sailing the boat upwind, wind always coming from the back of the top of the board, then as we let the sails out, the boat is going to slow down and stop reasonably quickly. And you can, the more you let the sails out, the more of an effect this is going to have. So if you like ease an armful of sheet, the boat isn't necessarily going to stop. It's going to keep going. But if you keep easing sheet, then eventually when you get to a certain amount, the boat is going to stop. If we let the traveller out as well, then this is also going to have more of an effect in slowing the boat down and stopping the boat. So that is on the upwind point of sail. Of course, what we can also do is steer the boat into the wind. That is going to have a very quick stopping effect on the boat. So if we need to stop as quickly as possible, dump the sails. The vernacular is dump. That means let them off completely quickly and turn the boat into the wind. That is the fastest way to stop the boat. So effect of letting the sails out on an upwind course, we'll call that 100%. Yes, you can stop your boat completely on an upwind course just by letting the sails out. So next, this is what we're calling a close reach. A close reach is halfway between upwind and a beam reach. Letting the sails out, it's, in fact, let's put some numbers on this, shall we? So upwind effectiveness 100, we'll call that 100. Not necessarily 100%, we'll just call it 100. Close reach, yes, you could still stop the boat completely by letting the sails out, but you're gonna have to let them out a bit more. So that's gonna drop down to 90. Now, this is where the big difference jumps in between the close reach and the beam reach. How much can we slow the boat down just by letting the sails out? This is assuming that we can't just release the main sheet from the boom. It's going to still be attached. I would say we could come down 30. So maybe this is a percentage. 30%. So even with the sails completely eased on a beam reach, the boat is still going to go forwards. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then any further downwind than a beam reach, we let the sails out completely, and we're still going to be moving forwards. You know, we're not going to actually notice that much of a change in our boat speed here at all by letting the sails out when we're going downwind. So if we want to stop the boat on these points of sail here, then we're going to need to turn up into the wind. Now, if we're wanting to slow down and not stop from here, we could go more downwind and we could bring the sails in actually tighter, because then the wind is not going to be catching the sails. It's going to be going either side around the sails. But we're not going to be able to stop the boat completely, because at the end of the day, we're still getting blown downwind. Okay. At this point, I'm just going to have a quick scan in the live chat because I think some people are getting involved here. Yeah. Hello, Wesley. Great to have you on board. Wesley says lying to. Yes. stopping the boat so that you can actually stop and take a break, or perhaps before the start of a race, is called lying to is one term. Hove-to means exactly the same thing. Or going into irons is another one. But going into irons, spelt the same as an iron that you do your clothes with, is more of an accidental way of stopping the boat. Like if you mess up a tack, that would be called going into irons. All right. So okay. So how can we stop the boat and go into irons, or go hove to, or lie to? So this is the effectiveness of the Mainsheet. I hope everyone found that quite interesting. I certainly did. Haven't looked at it like that before. Always nice to look at things in a new way. So to stop the boat completely, to go hove to, two ways to do it. And one way to do it is we're just on an upwind point of sail. We'll let the sails out completely, and then to go into a full hove to, or lying to. One type of hove to might just be called, I don't know what you call it, whatever the opposite is of full hove to, would be just to have the sails loose. So there we can see the wind is just passing either side of the sails. There's the mainsail, by the way. So that's not propelling the boat forwards. But to really stop the boat so that you'll be stopped for a long time, and this is what most people would do before the start of the race when they really want to park up, is mainsail off, and then the jib we're going to bring onto the wrong side of the boat, on the windward side of the boat, and cleat the jib there, and then we put the rudders hard across. So the effects that are going on here: mainsail not really doing anything. Occasionally it might catch the wind. When the mainsail catches, that is trying to put the boat up this way into the wind. The jib, with the jib on the wrong side, you can kind of see the way the wind is blowing here. The jib is going to try to pull that way, which is going to try to make the boat turn downwind and start moving. But by having the rudders across like this, that means if the boat does try to start moving, immediately the rudders are going to work and the boat is going to turn back upwind. So there we go. Those are the effects of lying to, or going hove to. Now, the easier way to get into this position, because sometimes, especially if you sail a boat which has got a fully battened jib, it can be quite tricky getting it across into this position. So if you sail on the tack which you don't want to go hove to on, and then tack, but leave the jib in the original position and just completely dump the mainsail after the tack, then you're going to slow down. Then you can put the rudders across slowly, and then the boat will end up in this position. So there we go. Lying to or hove to. There we are. Thanks very much for the question, Lee. All right, Fred's on board. Hello, Fred. Fred is checking in after a while. A bit of an absence there. We've marked your card, Fred, but thanks for coming back in. All right, so Jens says a good, interesting would be a sailing backwards lesson. Yeah, I think that backs up what Lee was saying as well. So sailing back, I tell you what, we'll come on to that next, but I'm just going to check in with everyone else who's checking in first. Fred says my Hobie 16, a 1973. Now that is an early one. Down. Mowers put a crack in the hull and it needs a new trampoline as well. Unlucky. Yeah. Yeah, and that with a old boat like that, then you have to consider what sort of condition is it in? Is it in showroom condition? If it is, then definitely worth spending the money on fixing it, keeping it on the water. Always nice to keep boat on the water if we've got the chance. But if it's, you know, in pretty shaky condition already, how much is it going to cost to put it back on the water, or how much is it going to cost to get hold of another one? That's one of the kind of the benefits the Hobie 16 has got over other types of catamaran, is just that there's so many of them about that there is that opportunity to find another one, and a lot of time for not that much money. All right, we got Paul on board, Paul and Jackie from Midmar Dam in Pietermaritzburg, South Africa, getting ready for Hobie Tiger Nationals in Langebaan in 2 weeks' time. Can I come, please? Now, Langebaan, South Africa is probably now it's the spiritual home of the Hobie Tiger class. The Langebaan hosted the World Championships in 2008, and because Hobie Cat supplied a lot of charter boats for that event into South Africa, a lot of them stayed there afterwards, which has ended up with South Africa having the biggest active Hobie Tiger fleet in the world. And the Hobie Tiger is still one of the best catamarans to sail, hands down. Definitely love it. It's just such a shame that that it got kind of like outdated in the Formula 18 class, no longer supported by Hobie, and so basically declared redundant, but not in South Africa. So the South African nationals would be probably a bigger fleet than the last actual world championships. So that is a good event to get to. Very nice, Paul. All right, we have developed a main sheet that in cleats by itself. It just jumps out of the cleat. Is there something one can do to stop this from happening? Look at the problem tomorrow. Yeah, sometimes if one thing that can do that is if you've got, there are certain types of cleat which have if this is the actual cleat, have I got one here? No. All right. And there's the bolt that goes into the cleat there. Can we draw that again? We're going to try. Okay, that's pretty good. All right, we like that. Now, on certain types of cleat, the plate that the cleat sits on, so which would be something like this, actually has a bit of a slot where so you can actually adjust for forwards and backwards how far the cleat actually sits. And with if you have got this sort of adjustment forwards and backwards, so that is like a slot where the bolts go through. If you put it too far backwards, then yes, the cleat will just, or it will release, even though it's counterintuitive, because when you actually look at the block, if you put the cleat back more, it looks like it's up at an angle like this. But what that does is it means somehow the rope jumps out. Now, the other reason why the main sheet might be automatically dumping, one of two things, is inside the cleat, the thing that closes it is a spring, which is just like this sort of shape. And if your springs have gone inside your cleat, then it's only the actual tension in the rope which is going to hold that from jumping out. So take the main sheet out of the cleat and just move the jaws like that. See if they don't actually spring back. And then you can actually get replacement springs, and they're reasonably easy to fit. So that is the next option. The other thing that would lead to cleats failing or not gripping the rope quite as much is if they're quite old, the jaws in the cleat can get worn and they stop gripping the rope. So that is another one. And the final one is if the rope is quite old, it might have flattened so much where it cleats that it doesn't grip very much anymore. So in that situation, what I would do, the quick fix, is take the main sheet out off and then put the main sheet through the blocks the other way round. So we're effectively reversing the main sheet. So then the flat bit of the rope will no longer be the bit that goes in the cleat. You can do exactly the same thing on your spinnaker halyard as well, as long as it's not tapered. Just reverse the spinnaker halyard, and then that won't be a flat bit that sits in the cleat anymore. So maybe that helps. All right, we've got Ryan on board in Maui. Nice to have you with us, Ryan, as always, at the crack of dawn there. Ryan says rebuild the cam on the main sheet locking mechanism. Yes, I think that's pretty much what we said. Yeah, Murray's in San Diego, California, sell a rebuild kit. Yes. All right, we got Max on board in Rosenheim, Germany, just in time for the giveaway competition that I've just come up with. It's an idea. It's basically to get a bit more traffic on the website. But all right, here we go. So I'm currently sporting what I consider to be my favorite design that I've ever done. I do all of the t-shirt designs at totaljoyrider.com, which is the website of Joyrider TV, where yes, I sell some t-shirts, hoodies, hats, drinking apparatus, things like that, which helps to keep the YouTube channel going, because unfortunately I can't do all this without a little bit of income coming in to pay for things like food and, more importantly, beer. Yeah, so right, the giveaway, here's how it's going to work. What you need to do is you need to head over to totaljoyrider.com. Do I need to write this down? Probably not. totaljoyrider.com, and have a browse through the wide range of designs of t-shirts and hoodies. And what you need to do to enter into the competition is to put in the comments, not in the live chat, in the comments of this live video, you need to put in there what is your favorite t-shirt design. Perhaps just to go easy on me, write t-shirt design and then what the design was, what it's called, and then in next week's Q&A, what we'll be doing is pulling out at random. This will be completely random. You'll just have to trust me on that. Completely random. One of the people who put what their favorite design was, and they will win that t-shirt for free. Is that a good giveaway? I think so. Now, so that I'm not stitching myself up, what to qualify the competition, we need 50 people to enter. 50. All right. If it doesn't come in at 50, then there won't be a giveaway. I can't afford to give stuff away unless it's worth it. So there we go. Does that sound all right? Joe, will you be entering the competition? No, I don't think I will. But this one is definitely my favorite one. And this is called the Tequila Sunset. Is it? Yeah, the Tequila Sunset design. And I was really happy with this one. But no, I won't be entering. So we need 50 entries, and that will be in the comments of the Q&A video, which will, if it's not available at the moment, it will be available after we have concluded this session. So there we go. That is the giveaway. So tell your friends, let's get entering. Tell your family members, you could win a t-shirt. Oh, yes. All right. So back in to the preloaded questions. All right. Anything else in the live chat we need to talk about? No. All right. Oh, yeah. We're going to talk about sailing backwards. Yeah. And it has to be a design off the website. This is for Ryan more than anyone, not a design that you've had done as a custom design. So there we go. All right. So sailing backwards. One of the fundamentals of sailing backwards is you have to turn the boat into the wind first, because if you put your boat into the wind, eventually, if you can hold the boat into the wind, which will generally mean that you might have to use the rudders a bit to keep the boat into the wind. If it's there for, depending on the wind strength, but in a moderate wind, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, the boat will start moving backwards. So when the boat starts moving backwards, how do we keep it moving backwards? Because if the boat starts to turn, it's not going to take long until the sails fill with wind and we start going forwards again. I think sailing backwards is one of the coolest things that you can do on a catamaran. So what you have to do if you want to keep the boat going backwards is you have to have really good control of the rudders, keeping that and using the rudders to keep the boat pointing into the wind. Now, the difficulty with that is when we're going backwards, the actual mechanics of the rudder is, if that's our rudder looking from the top, it's anchored at the front. That's where it's pivoting normally. But when it's going back, so in a normal situation, it's really easy to steer because the pivot is at the same as where the direction of travel. Whereas when we go backwards, the flow of water around the rudders is coming from the wrong side, which makes it extremely twitchy, because if we allow the water to get on one side more than the other side, then the rudder is really going to try to pull over to that direction. So we have to really, it's going to take quite a firm hold of the tiller extension, the tiller arm, the tiller connecting bar, one of those parts, to keep control of the rudders while you're going backwards. But and if it flicks across, the boat's going to turn quite quickly, so you have to quickly correct if that happens. So going backwards like that, it does require quite some responsive helming from the back. Now, the other thing is, if you're sailing a low volume boat, like a Hobie 14 would be the ultimate example, and you are sitting at the back, steering backwards, if it's windy, it could be quite easy for the boat to actually capsize backwards. Sorry, all right, just got to give you some sad news. After last week's Q&A, somebody told me that the hulls on the Office Hands Dave wooden Hobie 16 were the wrong way round, which was true because they are asymmetric. And in trying to fix it, I broke it. Sorry, Dave, if you see this. Yeah, I broke it. So I would have used that to demonstrate this point. But yeah, so you have to be careful not to dig the back of the boat in when you're going backwards. So it's a fine balance, but the rudders become very twitchy. You just have to be the master of the rudders. And that is how we can go backwards. And then when, like, say you're going backwards out of a launching situation, when you're ready to go forwards, you just need to decide which way you want to go. Let the rudders go to that side. Of course, it's the reverse direction. And then the boat will very quickly go round. And then the trick here is to spot as soon as it starts going forwards, you need to straighten up with the rudders and then off you go. Okay. There we go. I'm gonna leave that one there, Jens, just because we've been going over an hour now, and I've got one preloaded question still to move on to before we bring this to a close. So if you have got any further questions in the live chat, these will only be responded to if they are accompanied by a super sticker or a super chat. All right, back to the live chat. Ryan, Ryan says custom designs, very good at totaljoyrider.com. Max says hoodie jacket with Taipan 4.9. I can pick it up in Vasiliki. Yeah, okay, got to put it in the comments rather than the live chat if you could. All right, we've got James on board. Any monohull vids coming this season? The foiling laser. Seeing as you've asked, yes, I'd love to. Foiling laser is seriously a lot of fun. Okay. All right, Dopey Dave's on board. Hi, Dave. Nice to have you with us with the super sticker. Great. That's a great way of supporting Joyrider TV. Stephen's in there with the super sticker. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Stephen. That is actually Stephen's 5th super sticker on a live stream. Thank you very much indeed. It means a lot to me. It gives me a warm glow inside and makes me feel that it's truly appreciated. The good work. Okay. All right. So the last preloaded question we're going to talk about today is from David. Oh, Stephen says super sticker equals won the competition. Not this time, unfortunately. It's not that sort of competition. All right, this is from David in New Jersey, I believe, who has just bought a Hobie Getaway. And just to go through the question briefly, it is he wants to put a genoa, basically an oversized jib, on the Getaway to give it a bit more juice, especially in the lighter winds. Now, funnily enough, I just received in the post today exactly that, a genoa. It's kind of like between an asymmetric spinnaker and a genoa, actually for the mini cat. The inflatable. So next time I get out on that bad boy, we'll be testing this turbo system for the boat, which would be really exciting. But what we need to do if we are going to upgrade our boat to have such a thing, two different ways we could do it. One is we could replace the jib for a much bigger jib. Now, the don't know what, that's not going to be quite so helpful. Let's get this boat here. All right. So if we're replacing our jib for a bigger jib or a genoa, the main limiting factor that we've got in place is where the hounds are. So going from the bridle wires to the mast. So that is as high up as we could put an alternative sail without making some fairly radical changes. So we could have a bigger sail. Of course, it can only come down so far, but we could get a sail which is a lot deeper and maybe comes back like this. And then what we would need to do is to alter where the sheeting position is for that sail. So what we might have to do here, because what we're trying to achieve, as we have talked about before, is to have an even amount of pull in the back edge and the bottom edge, which means if we go directly in between these two edges like this, that means that the sheeting block would need to be about here. So we'd need to attach a block on either side of the boat where the jib sheets would then run through to do that. Okay, so that would be option one. All we'd need to add to the boat for option one to get this bigger jib on there is we would need to put some alternative jib blocks further back. There we go. But I think what would be much cooler, a nice system, and this is actually what we've got going on the Mini Cat when I get that one out soon, is to actually add, no, that's going to be, all right, we can do it like that, a bowsprit. So exactly the same as what we fly a spinnaker off, but it doesn't need to be quite as long. It just needs to be a bit longer. And then what we can do is most boats will have an attachment up here somewhere. And if your boat doesn't, it's quite easy to put an attachment there. And we put a block there with a swivel. So this is if it's going to be a genoa. And then we've got all of this space for the front edge of the sail. So it could be a much, much bigger sail. And in fact, let's go for another color here. We're going with the blue. We're going with the blue. Okay, so we could go much bigger. And then the back of the sail could come all the way back here. And then we could actually fit this with a furler so that you probably wouldn't be able to fly this sail much above a close reach or a beam reach if the wind was stronger. So that is the way that we'd have to do it. And if we wanted to have this sail on a furler, then what we need to do is, unlike a spinnaker, a regular spinnaker, we're going to need to have a pretty rigid front edge, like almost like a bolt rope, like you'd have in your mainsail, like a pretty sturdy rope in the front, because in able to roll a sail like this, you need to have tension in the front edge. If it isn't under a lot of tension, if you try to roll it, all that's going to happen is it's going to twist up. So it needs to be under tension, which means the front edge has to have a pretty decent bit of reinforcement in there. And the one on the mini cat has actually got like a bolt rope, like on the mainsail, running up the front edge of the sail so that it can be rolled. Again, we're going to need some blocks for this so that we get a fairly even pull. So that would be a bit further back. And then we'd need some sort of halyard for this as well. So this is much easier, but having the second sail there or the third sail is that little bit cooler. The Hobie Pearl actually had one of as standard. If anybody wants to buy a Hobie Pearl and you are in the UK, do let me know, because I know where there is one that's up for sale. So do let me know. Anyway, all right, so here we go. We're just coming to the end of this. All right, we got Callum on board who says JBT MIM, two I's there, MIIMIS. Yes, we'll talk about that another time. But yes, Callum, you are right. You know what we're talking about. All right, Jason is with us. Hello, Jason. Jason says we had a custom flying fish reacher made for our getaway. This is for a getaway. Used the John Forbes style of block coming through the trampoline grommet to create the sheeting point. Nice. Yes. I think I get what you're saying there. The Reacher gave us much better light wind performance and looks amazing with Chris's custom artwork on it. Very nice. Yeah, Chris Picknally, who paints the sails, get him to paint your Jack Reacher. Let's call it a Jack Reacher. Just started watching the series actually on Netflix. Very good. Yeah, that is gonna really cook the goose that little bit more. All right, so yes, we are getting towards the end now, which is why I've sped up my rate of speech. All right, we've got we've got hung like Tic Tacs on board. Nice to have you with us. Can you talk a bit about maintenance? Do I grease blocks? No, don't grease your blocks, because if that grease goes onto your ropes, you are in for a bad time. There's nothing worse than slippery ropes. I have a new boat and want to take care of it. Best thing you could do this is actually true. Best thing you can do to take care of your boat is wash it every time. Get all of the salt off your boat. If you're sailing on fresh water, then you are in luck, because that means that your boat is getting a wash every time you go out. But if you're sailing on, you never know what the fresh water is like that you're sailing on. And some lakes or reservoirs might have some sort of, what would you call it, like a mineral content to the water that can actually stain your boat. So even if you're sailing on fresh water, it might be worthwhile hosing your boat down after your session. But for the blocks and everything, just really wash them. That is the best you can do. And with the Mainsheet, hang it up to dry nicely. Keep things out of the sun if you can. Put a cover on the boat once it's dry if you can. But yeah, keep stuff out of the sun, keep stuff clean, and that is going to do the best thing possible. Hung like Tic Tacs says it's a mini cat. Yes. There we are. Nice choice. I was confused by the mini cat's maintenance kit. It has lithium grease, WD-40, etc. Not sure what I'm using that stuff on. No, me neither, actually. Yeah, because it doesn't have a traveler, so the only actually moving parts on the mini cat are the blocks. But I wouldn't put grease on the blocks again, for the reason which I said, is if that grease gets onto the ropes, that is not a fun time. All right. So just finishing off, Phil is on board. One shoe Phil, no less. The fastest cat sailor in the world. One shoe Phil is on board. Thanks for tuning in, Phil. Great to have you with us. All right. So just closing off here. Everybody in the comment section to enter the giveaway. Stephen at Grapham says Grapham water is anything but fresh water. I wouldn't drink it. We use a boat cleaner with a lovely coconut scent. And yes, you would. All right. Nice job there, Stephen. Okay. Yeah. So enter the giveaway, and I will certainly be seeing you soon with some more on Joyrider TV. So good luck to everybody this weekend. Get on the speed stick if you're going to be getting out on the water. The speed stick hasn't had much action on it last week. So, perhaps if you're sailing in the South African Tiger Nationals, have a GPS on, see what your top speed is while you're out there. Langebaan is a fast place to sail. There we go. All right, so thanks very much, and I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.